Oh, that is good evening, everyone. Welcome to Yolanda Perry Live Talk with the Girls. I'm so excited to have you here with us on this evening. Today is January the 17th, 2023. This is our first live talk of the year. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm excited to be here with you on this evening. As for those who may not know, I am a breast cancer survivor, and this is going on my 6 year of survivalship. I like to call it breast cancer conqueror. So during my journey last year, I decided to host Save The Girlz Day 10/22/22. I shared my story for the first time at my own event. And we talked about the importance of having, a, excuse me, having what is it? A power of attorney for health,
Mhm.
money management, and the importance of having a will and trust and insurance. That gave birth to Yolanda Perry Live Talk with the Girls. This is our third live. And today we will be talking about the importance of having a will and a trust. Today we have a special guest. Once again, we have attorney Marlena Johnson, who is going to be with us. Marlena is a licensed Illinois attorney who graduated from John Marshall Law School, and she's been in practice for over 30 years in the city of Chicago. Marlena have two children, and she is gracing us with her presence on today to encourage men and women all over the world the importance of having a will and trust. We must have our business in order for our family can have peace during their time of grieving, and they be informed of what we have put in place so the family can maintain their lifestyle. So at this time, I would like for everyone um, to welcome attorney Marlena Johnson.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening. Yolanda, thank you so much for allowing me to share with your audience the importance of having their business in order. And so we thank you for the invitation, and we pray that something will be said to the audience to spur them and motivate them to make a decision to get things written properly, and to make the family aware of their decisions before it's a crisis.
Yes, I agree. It's so important that we do it before we are in crisis. I sh-
Mhm.
I had shared with someone, we can be powerful even in our death. And the young lady asked me, "What do you mean?" And I was talking about having our business in order is powerful. So our family can have peace to know that they don't have to worry about the income now that may decrease in the household. They don't have to worry about property going into probate court because we didn't have the proper documents in order. So I'm not
Mhm.
going to prolong the time. Can you please share with us what is a will?
Okay, so let me make my disclaimer to the audience. So, for the purposes of this entire conversation is for educational purposes. This little conversation that we're having is not a substitute for competent legal counsel. Uh, it is strictly for information and education and motivation, but it is not a substitute for competent legal counsel. So that's my disclaimer to the audience. Um, and so we're going to dive right in. So, A will is just what it says that it is. It is the will or the desire of a testator, Testator, or in other words, a dead person. It's a dead person's desire to distribute the wealth that that dead person, aka uh, Tina Testator, we're going to give her name Tina Testator, and Tina has decided some things about her resources that she has while she's alive and while she's competent. That is very important that Tina gets to decide. She's making decisions about how her wealth will be distributed upon her death. And so that is a will. It is a written document. So uh, no longer do we use kitchen napkins like we used to in the old days to write what we want to occur after we're gone. It is incumbent upon Tina Testator or Tom Testator to seek legal counsel and have a professional will drawn up. It's very inexpensive. Usually, it can be done under a couple $100, depending upon how many pages a person would need to have. But even the simplest will can be done professionally for at an inexpensive rate. So, cost and expenses is not an excuse. It's really not. And so, in that document, we get to name our heirs or our what we call legatees. And that's a big word for people that we have left something to in our will, a legatee. And so, or an heir, which is a descendant by law of that deceased person. So we have heirs and we have legatees. And those persons are listed in the will to receive specific items like my gold collection, my gold jewelry collection goes to my niece, or my art collection. I've got a nice art collection that I've accumulated over the years. I leave my art collection to my grandson. And so there are specific distributions listed in the will, and sometimes there are general distributions in the will for things that we may have accumulated even after we've drawn up a will. We have the ability to cause our executor, which is the person that we leave in charge of the will, to distribute to the grandkids. Maybe I have a host of grandkids and I want to leave them each a cash gift. So I can put that in my will, in specifically or even generally. That executor should be someone who is level-headed, someone who will listen to your wishes and actually follow your wishes without fear of mistake. Should be someone that is trustworthy, an executor, someone that is level-headed. So so the document primarily distributes what we call personal property, items, jewelry, art, books, records, furs, clothing, grandma's antique china, uh, those things that are of value to that person that is deceased. So it's personal property being transferred upon the death of the testator. That's a will. It should be also witnessed by two people. The signing of the will should be witnessed by two adult people who are not listed as heirs or legatees in the will. So be careful about that. Not everybody can witness a will. That person should be 18 years old and able to understand what they are doing. And so they will go down on the document as being a witness to the testator's competency. You know, grandma's in her right mind. She knows what she is doing. And on this day, I saw her in my presence signing the will. And so that's a witness. And it should also be notarized by a notary in that particular county. And so that kind of sums up in general what a will is, a legal document. And so we take these things very seriously. And I will tell you that Cook County judges do not care for homemade documents that are purchased out of uh, Office
Office
Max.
Max. I have seen them there. I seen them.
Leave them there, please. I can tell you how the judges in Cook County fuss and complain about those documents. So please, if you have a simple will and you just want to make sure that your family has peace of mind, please go ahead and hire a law student or hire an intern, somebody, or a paralegal, somebody that knows where things should go on the document. Yeah, leave those Office Max documents alone if you're in Cook County, Illinois, unless you really know what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with us that a will is a legal document that we would complete while we're alive
Yeah.
to give to disperse our items. I remember my grandfather had a watch, and he didn't have a will, and it was between one of his daughters, one of his daughters, and one of the grandchildren wanted this watch, and it put my grandmother in an uncomfortable position because now her daughter wants the watch and her grandchild wants the watch. And who asked first? You know, so that can be a hurtful situation to one of the family members. But if we had a will and he put it in the will, it would have went to whom he chose to have his watch. You know, those things we don't think about when we live it, but you have those favorite hats, them favorite shoes of, you know, mom, grandma that you want, you know, always wanted. So thank you for sharing that with us.
That fur coat, that may be important to someone in the family. And so we want to make sure that things that are of value, that they are written down clearly, so that there will be little reason to squabble over these things. Now, that won't stop everything. It won't stop every argument, because we do understand that oftentimes at these times of life and death, there are family issues that have been present all along.
Mm-hmm.
It may be have stemmed from jealousy from years and decades ago. It may be mom show favorites when she really should not have. And so those underlying currents or underlying issues, they surface at these times. And so you'll have family members with irate issues or tight jaws sitting at the funeral, not talking to each other, or having tense words at the repast, because these issues that have been there all along, somehow they just kind of erupt when we don't have our documentation in place. And so it's really incumbent upon us to make sure that we have at least a simple will in place and it cuts down on all of that family squabbling as much as possible, as much as possible.
So, who should have a will?
So if anybody that's of age, who has anything. So if you're 16, I don't think you need a will,
Okay.
because chances are, unless you have a business that's thriving, you don't need a will. If you're just your average high schooler, you don't need a will just yet. But if you are, say, like a millennial, and you've got this crazy business going that just exploded on the scene, and you're making money, you need a will, because you have assets now and you have a business now. And so that business needs to be listed in your will. Who's going to take over your business, or will it be sold? And if it'll be sold, what's the methodology? I mean, there's so much that goes into it. So it does get to be a little more complex if we have a business listed in our will. We
Mm-hmm.
have issues that you may need to bring in professionals to evaluate or give value to the business. But whatever it is, that executor, who's the person that you're leaving in charge of your will, they will have the ability to draw in professionals to help them sell the business, get a good price for the business, and distribute the proceeds from the business to the heirs. So that entrepreneur needs a will. Um, every adult should have at least a simple will. And so, whether you're living in a senior high rise building, or even in subsidized housing, you have items that are valuable to you. And so, there are a number of organizations that will come to your building, if they haven't already, and do a simple will for you that is inexpensive but yet professional. So we want every adult, especially if you have children, if you have minor children, right? And you want to have a clause in your will that names a person that you would prefer to be the guardian. Yeah. So your sister or your brother and his wife, or your best friend, they could be listed as your preferred person to be the guardian over your minor children. So that becomes very, very important, in that we have a society full of single mothers and single fathers with children,
Mm-hmm.
and don't necessarily have a spouse or a partner that would make a good guardian solo. So anybody with minor children should have a will, and that will name your preferences for guardianship over your children. And that goes a long way with the judge.
Oh, wow. That,
Hmm.
you know what, I appreciate you bringing that up because it's so important that there's an old song we used to sing in church, and it was "Will you be ready when Jesus come?" And it said, "Get your house in order." And I keep hearing that, "Get your house in order, get your house in order," because we never know when is our last day. The next breath is not promised. Even sitting here, it said the Bible says life is like a vapor. We can be
Hmm.
here this moment and gone the next moment, just that quick. And this means so much to me, and I really appreciate you being with us on
Yeah.
today.
It's very in this age where we have all of these strange diseases and
Hmm.
these strange viruses that pop up out of nowhere. uh,
Hmm.
it's even more vital. Right before the pandemic hit, when we weren't quite sure what it was, we thought it'd be gone in a week or two. We had no idea. We had never experienced a pandemic. But I tell you, Yolanda, I lost so many clients while I was in the midst of doing their documents.
Wow.
Seniors who I would visit at their homes and sit there at their dining room tables working on their documents. And I tell you, as the weeks went by and we realized the gravity of the situation, wow, I tell you, and we couldn't go see them in the hospitals, right? It was no visitation. We couldn't go to the rehab homes to get signatures, no visitation.
Wow.
We couldn't even go to the funerals because the funerals early in the pandemic were all online. We watched the screen. So yes, it is very vital to, as you say, to get our houses in order. So if you have children, and particularly I have a special needs adult child, I have an autistic young adult male,
Hmm.
and that is an issue for parents who have special needs children who may not have siblings who are willing to raise them after you're gone. So what's going to happen to that adult child? Will they have to go to a state facility and live? I don't know. I don't think so. Not the way these state facilities are being staffed.
Hmm.
We don't have that luxury anymore. So it's vital that we talk about who is going to raise Jimmy after mom is gone, or who is going to raise uh, Susie when her dad passes away. And hopefully somebody in the family will step up, somebody that's loving and reputable and who will do a good job. But those issues can be handled in a will or even in a trust.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned trust because that leads us into our the next section of this. Can you
Mhm.
explain what is a trust?
So there are a number of different kinds of trust. And a trust, I liken it to a safe deposit box. So a safe deposit box, it has a combination. You turn the combination, and that box opens. You put property, or you put some kind of desire in that safe deposit box, and you turn the handle, turn the knob, and it's closed, it's shut until that grantor, that's the person that puts the property in the box, in the safe deposit box,
Mm-hmm.
until the grantor is deceased, for the most part. There are some kinds of trusts that operate as the grantor is living. So it can operate as soon as the document is funded and signed and notarized properly, and um, it is or it can happen when you are deceased. So it can happen while you're alive, become effective while you're alive, and or while you're deceased. So trusts are like safe deposit boxes.
Okay.
I desire to put my real estate. I have a home, or I have a condominium, or I have several homes, or several condominiums, or I
Mm-hmm.
have a business, or several businesses, right?
Okay.
I'm a baller and a shot caller. I can put all of my businesses in a trust and lock it up. And the purpose of the lockup is so that I retain some kind of anonymity. I retain some kind of secret shield as to who the beneficiary is. So I'll be the number one beneficiary most of the time, but I will also have my wife and kids, my husband and kids as beneficiaries. And so, but the general public does not know who the beneficiaries of that property is. So that's a benefit, a huge benefit to the grantor. You don't want people to know the size of your wealth. You use all different kinds of uh, names and different shields, like Marlena Johnson or MJLLC Series XYZ. And uh, so there's a purpose in the trust. And a good purpose is it does provide some protection against creditors, right?
Okay.
Yeah, protection. So, you know, in your former life, you ran up a lot of debt. You ran up a lot of bills. You left a lot of people hanging. But
Mm-hmm.
now you're making money, and now you're doing well. Well, guess what? Those creditors are gonna still be looking for you to see if they can attach their judgments, because they have judgments now because you walked away, if they can attach their judgments to any of your property, any of your wealth. And so that is a good reason to set up a trust, a very good reason. It helps you to avoid creditors.
Okay. That's
Now, it used to be that when we would put our loved ones in nursing homes, uh, it would be that we would be able to allow them to use state resources, stay in a state hospital or nursing home, run up thousands of dollars a year uh, uh, on that bill for nursing and doctor's care. It used to be that that home that I used to live in would be sheltered. Follow? That home would be sheltered from the nursing home and the state. Otherwise, the state would apply a lien, LIEN, to my residential home. But if I have a spouse, my spouse is allowed to live in that home until they're deceased. So they won't come and boot grandpa out, but the state does have the potential to place a lien on that residential property and seize it if necessary to pay for grandma's growing nursing home bill. Yeah. And so one way to get around that is the state utilizes what we call a 5-year look back. So this is where planning really comes into play. A 5-year look back. So any transfers of property, the state is going to look back upon my admitting my grandmother into the nursing home. They're going to look at the history of her real estate transfers. And they're going to want to know, did I just transfer that house into a trust just last year or just last month? And it is possible that a lien will be applied to that home because that home was not transferred within the previous 5 years before admission. Wow. So really, if you think you got a really cute house, a really cute condo, and you know that there is not going to be anybody to keep grandma in her home until she passes, chances are she is going to wind up in a state nursing home. We want to make sure that that property is transferred into a irrevocable trust, and that's a term I haven't explained yet. We want to make sure that her property is transferred within the 5 years prior to her admission, because otherwise it's suspect to the state. It looks kind of shady. Looks like you were trying to evade paying your bill to the state of Illinois. And so I know that was a lot to absorb. And so I've got to put my disclaimer out there again, right? Go talk to the social worker, talk to the social worker at the hospital, talk to the social worker at the nursing home. They'll tell you exactly what to do. But whatever you do, try to do it before you need to be admitted, at least 5 years prior to. Otherwise, it is suspect. It's suspect.
I think with what you're sharing is now is the time to do it. Knowledge is not powerful until it's applied. So if you have property, hire you an attorney and create you a trust. First, get more detail. This is here as education, just giving
a little snippet.
Just a little snippet of what a will and a trust is. So after this, we want you to go do your homework. Research.
Yes.
Research who you hire. You just don't want to know anyone. You want to get a credible attorney or intern. Let's say attorney, right?
Yeah, well, this is basic. So all of this is basic. Your entry level attorney can do this.
They can do a trust too?
They can do a trust too.
Okay.
They can do a will and they can do a trust. And so as long as they have passed the bar or in training for the bar or under an attorney's supervision, they can, they can do a will. And a trust is a little bit more complicated. because
Mhm.
a lot of it is educating the client. And so, one thing we hear a lot is we want to avoid probate. Probate has a bad rap. It's got a bad rap in Cook County, and I guess that's because of all the judge shows.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and from what they have heard at the barber shop and the beauty shop, my mother's house went into probate, and the lawyers took all the money and all of that. And so we do, for minimum property, we do want to avoid probate because it is an industry, and industries make money for the vendors. And so if we can avoid probate, then by all means, go ahead and pay the money up front. Otherwise, your relatives will have to pay uh, $3,500 to $4,000 going in to probate. That is going in. That is not necessarily the full amount. So it makes sense, especially if you know your grown children, if you know they're not going to ever get that money together and pay an attorney. If you know they're not going to take the responsibility, go ahead, talk to an attorney, have him or her set up a trust, put that house in that trust, and those children will get that house automatically. There is no need to see an attorney after the trust is funded, or after the property is put in to the trust. There is nothing else that a person needs to do. It happens by what we call operation of law. And so it's far better than passing the plate, trying to come up with that $4,000 retainer when grandma or mom has the wherewithal to put that house in trust, and it just stops all of the squabbling. You can designate in that trust agreement who gets what portion of the property. And that definitely puts a stop on disagreements and conflicts.
Great. So I appreciate you. We have talked about what is a will, and that's something you stated for personal items to be distributed to family members
Mm-hmm.
within the family, and everyone should have a will. Even a millennium who have a business, they should
Mm-hmm.
start out with a will. I heard you say, well, what is a trust? A trust is a vault that you open up and put assets, is what I hear. A home is an asset. Your
Yes.
business are
Yes.
assets in for protection, and also privacy. Protection
Mm-hmm.
and privacy are the two things that stood out to me as the
Yes.
means of having a trust. I heard you mention one form of trust. You mentioned that there are different types of
There's,
will trust, different
yeah,
types of trust.
there are.
I don't know if
Um,
you wanted to name them, just give us a
well, I
definition
would just
of those.
say there are two large categories of trust. And one is revocable,
Mm-hmm.
revoke. I can change my mind at any given time. I,
Okay.
I can set up a trust today, and next year I can take my property out of trust and do whatever I want with my property. That's a revocable, what we call living trust.
Okay.
Revocable living trust. Another large category is an irrevocable living trust.
Mm-hmm.
Irrevocable. And those, the property cannot be taken out of. And so those are ideal when we have a situation with an elderly or a disabled kind of senior. grandma, great grandma, and she wants to remain in her home. And when the family or when her attorneys recognize that she's going to live in this home until she passes, or she desires to live in the home until she passes. May not be the case, but that's her desire going in. And so we want to lock that house, we want to lock that property down, because we don't want anyone coming to our dear senior with some unscrupulous motives to have that senior sign a document, sign a deed, not knowing what they're doing, taking advantage of grandma, and grandma is on a lot of medications and doesn't know what she is signing. Or there may be unscrupulous healthcare workers that prey, they're predators, and they prey on the seniors, and they prey on those that have a deep desire to stay in their homes. And it gets real dicey for the family, because you don't want a nefarious nephew or unscrupulous nurse to get to that senior. And so we want to lock that house. We are locking that estate down with an irrevocable trust. Irrevocable. It cannot be taken out of trust. It is only activated to go forward to the heirs or go forward to the beneficiaries upon the death of that person. And so those are two large categories. And then we have a number of other smaller categories to accomplish a certain thing. Okay. So oftentimes grandparents will leave educational trusts funded with monies for their grandkids upon their grandkids going to an accredited college in the United States of America and completing their course of assignments, maintaining a B+ or C+ average. There will be money set aside in a trust for that grandchild. That's an educational trust.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll mention one other.
Okay.
And that's a special needs trust. Mm-hmm. And this is complicated. I'm not going to get all into that deep water with you guys, because it does overlap with benefits law, Social Security laws, which many disabled people qualify for. So we try to get around giving assets to people that have a limit on their income. And a special needs trust is one way to kind of address that. But I definitely want you guys to see a specialist in that area. If you're desiring to set up a special needs trust for your disabled loved ones, please see a professional, and they will help you navigate those waters, because it does overlap with Social Security. And we don't want to jeopardize your loved one's benefits. And it can be jeopardized if it's done improperly. And so those are just two kinds of trusts that a person could set up. An educational trust, set aside 50, 60,000, 100,000 for your grandkids to get through school on certain conditions, that they maintain a B+, that they go to an accredited college, and all of those things that grandma so desires for that grandchild. So that's a little bit about a trust, and that's a little bit about a will, and it is all about taking care of what God has given you and being a good steward over what God has given you.
Thank you. You have shared some valuable information on this evening. I have placed your contact information in the chat. If you want
Okay.
to contact Attorney Marlena Johnson, please email her at Marlena Johnson1 at yahoo.com. That's
Mhm.
Marlena Johnson, Johnsson, the number one at yahoo.com. Thank you so much for being with us. And do you have any closing remarks before we end Yolanda Live Talk with the Girls?
No, I just commend you for pursuing these kinds of conversations. Um, they help the family become stronger, and it helps open up communication with the family.
Mhm.
And so I have two or three family members who all came in under recommendation. And so I'm going to have these conversations going forward with three segments of one family, but they're all talking one with another about this exact topic. What is a will? Can we get away with just a will? Or do we need a trust? And I will say this one more comment. I hear this all the time. I have a will. Is that enough? Right? I have a will. Is that enough? And I would say, yes, but. Yes, but. Because if you are a homeowner or a real estate owner, uh, and you have not put your home in a trust, or you've not done some other transferring um, activity, then your children are gonna have to probate that will in Cook County. So if you want to leave your home to your three children, one third each, one third each, one third each, and all you have is a will, they're not going to be able to transfer that property with just that will. So there needs to be some other transferring document to make sure that home gets into the name of those heirs. And so I'll leave it at that,
Mhm.
because there are a host of things that sometimes I recommend when people don't want to do a trust, or they think a trust is too expensive. I'll recommend your low budget kinds of transferring activities, but it has some risk attached to it. And so I kind of recommend that people stay on the straight and narrow and go with what is tried and true versus your low budget duct tape approach. So that's all I have to say on that subject. And again, I commend you and your audience for acting on what we are saying. So your next steps would be just to understand what I've said. Go Google circuit court, go Google Cook County probate, and that might overwhelm you. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just do simple wills. Google a simple will and learn what the elements are and what is required in Cook County to execute a simple will. And that'll get you started. And for the trust, I would leave that to the professionals.
Okay, so once again, you can contact Marlena Johnson if you would like to implement a will or trust. She also recommended resources of hiring attorneys or A paralegal or an
At
intern?
least, yeah, at
Uh,
least a paralegal.
at least a paralegal.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. And so we appreciate you. This video will be available on Yolanda Perry YouTube Live. I will also post it on my Facebook page for Save the Girlz and my personal Facebook page. And it's also also uploaded on Save the Girlz app. So men and women all
Okay.
over the world can have an opportunity to learn about the importance of having a will and trust. Regardless if they live in the state of Illinois, all states have their rules and regulations on implementing a will and a trust. So no matter what state you're in, do your homework and make
Mm-hmm.
informed decisions. Knowledge is not powerful until you apply it. So we are here to empower you to take care of your business, get your house in order. Tomorrow is not promised to none of us. We have presented Attorney Marlena Johnson was with us in November, I believe, and we talked about the importance of having a power of attorney for health. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and that I had never heard of a power of attorney for health until I
Mm-hmm.
became diagnosed with breast cancer. That is something we should be talking about,
Mm-hmm.
period. It shouldn't take a chronic diagnosis to put that document in place. It's
Mm-hmm.
imperative that we have that in place. If you're married or not, single parents, we have to just get our business in order. We don't want the hospital to be making decisions on who it will determine if I live or die. We don't want
Mm-hmm.
crazy Auntie Betty, who never liked me, to be given authority to say we're going to take her off life support or not. That is not what we want happening. Okay. I say that jokingly, but that can seriously happen where the doctors at some point, depending on the situation, can appoint a person to make that decision about your life. Take your
Mm-hmm.
power back. And if your child is at school in another state, you also want to have that there as well, because each state have different power of attorney paperwork to fill out, documentation to complete.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's important that these documents are wherever we are. If we hear my son is in DC, he should have a power of attorney at his doctor office there. If I can't make it there, who would make decision until I arrive?
Yeah.
These are things we don't think about. I talk for myself. I didn't think to do such a thing. And so it's important, especially when we have children in other states, grown
Mm-hmm.
adult children that may live in another state who not married, who would be that. So this is important. And then last month we talked about money management, which was amazing. We had a representative from a class facilitator from Faith and Financing, Manage Your Money God's Way. We had Peace University, which is David Ramsey curriculum. And then we had No More Crumbs. Now that you're debt free, now you can pour into others and make a difference in their lives like
Mm-hmm.
never before. And so here we are today talking about the trust and a will. What are they?
Mm-hmm.
Why should we have them? We're going to talk about more topics will be coming up this year is insurance and investments. These are things we should begin to have in place. Some people may already have it. Great. Everybody is not in the same place. We got a spectrum. People may be at the beginning, people may be in the middle or at the end or somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
between those 3
Mm-hmm.
points. So we want to empower everyone to just continue to become educated and apply what you learn, because that's only when it make a difference when you apply it. A lot of people had a lot of knowledge, but they took it to the grave with them. They did not apply it. So it didn't benefit their families for the knowledge that they have. So it's only powerful when we implement it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to keep us any longer. Thank you all for being with us. Please watch and share with your family and friends all over the world so we can all continue to make a difference in our family life. It's power in death when you have your house in order.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's the
Thank
last
you.
thing I have. If you have any closing words after you speak, we will end the session.
No, I think you've covered everything. I think I just wanted to make sure our
Mm.
our listeners understand that our conversation was just about this much of that whole spectrum of probate law. So don't rely on this video uh, to make your choices. Do rely on the expertise of a professional, because there is a lot more that we certainly could not say in this broadcast. So thank you so much for your consideration. And I thank you again, Yolanda, for your professionalism.
You're welcome, everyone. See you next time. Yolanda Perry Live, Talk with the Girls. We're out.